Work session meeting call to order. Councilmember Clayton.
Here.
Councilmember Kendall.
Here.
Councilmember Warner.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Quinn.
Here.
Mayor Moore.
Here.
Please stand for a moment of silent prayer, a moment of reflection. Please stand for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As to compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in the following manner. The annual notice was forwarded to the Asbury Park Press, the Poster, and the Star Ledger on January 2nd, 2015, and posted on the bulletin board on the same date. All notices are on file with the City Clerk.
Okay, Mayor and members of the City Council, as you know, Mr. Nuccio is not able to be here this evening. In his place, I will moderate the meeting. The first item on tonight's agenda is for the City Manager's report on issues raised at prior council meetings. Don Samet, the Director of Planning and Redevelopment, is here to make a report on behalf of Mr. Nuccio.
Yeah, for everyone here tonight, Mr. Nuccio apologizes for not being able to be here, but he provided me some text, which I'll read out to you, which addresses some concerns, I believe, that have come up at prior council meetings. The first is regarding handicapped parking spaces throughout the city. He says that there's been an attempt, or they've attempted to count spaces, and it appears that we are well within the required ratio of handicapped spaces to general parking spaces, but it's something that's going to be referred to the parking consultant to just review and comment on. There was then a concern over broken parking meters, and they've spoken with the personnel in charge of overseeing the meters, and he's going to make more periodic checks of the equipment to assure they are in working order. A time clock for City Hall. I think this is something I've heard of over the years that I've been here, but it's been ordered by the Finance Department and will be installed as soon as it is delivered. I'm afraid I don't have a time frame for that. There were a couple of comments regarding the roof at the wastewater treatment plant. First was in regard to the use of the plant, the roof for parking. And I'll just read this as it's written. Although it is assumed that there is an 8-inch thick concrete deck as the bottom layer of the roof, there is no proof that it is strong enough to handle traffic. The 2-inch thick concrete surface foam insulation would break and collapse under the weight of a car. In addition, with all the protrusions in that roof for various vents, you could not be able to maneuver and most likely could not meet NJ regulated standards, which is the RSIS. Most importantly would be access to the roof. We don't own any of the property along the longest sides to build a ramp on. That would be the north and south sides. We would either have to purchase a property just south of the sewer plant from iStar or install a single vehicle lift to raise and lower each car. The next item regarding the wastewater treatment plant is to construct an A-frame roof. This type of roof would have to be a metal hurricane-proof roof with a structural A-frame system below. It would have massive protrusions through it for the odor control system. This would probably cost 5 times what an overlay roof would cost. Then there's an item, installation of solar panels on the roof. I believe this would be for the sewer plant as well, although it's not indicated here. There is a method of installing solar panels in a ballasted system that can be designed not to affect the roof membrane below it. Such a system does not require any mechanical fastening to the roof, as the panels are strategically weighted at the base of their frame, designed so much so that it defeats the strength of uplift winds. This adds a lot of cost to traditional solar panel installation. Also, we analyzed the possibility of doing so in 2012, and the break-even was very long, over 10 years. Our savings in electrical cost was approximately $25,000 per year after the break-even. We save more than that just by doing the reverse electricity auction every 2 years, which was a decision after we realized solar would not be cost-effective, or should I say worth the effort. Furthermore, solar RECs have significantly dropped in value, so the amount of solar power that we would produce is worth much less than it was just a few years ago. Lastly, we would need a huge area to make it worthwhile. The roof area is too small to even generate 50% of the power required to run the plant. So those were the items that Tony asked me to report out on. I'll also be taking notes for him throughout the evening in case there are any other items which he'll need to follow up on.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Don. The next item on the agenda is a review of the special events and wedding applications, which will be presented by Tom Gilmore, the Director of Commerce.
Good evening. We have 3 applications and 1 wedding on the agenda tonight. The first application is the Senior Valentine Brunch, which is an annual event that we do. Now we do it at the Senior Center. It'll take place on Valentine's Day from 1 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Any questions on that? The next one is Chamber of Commerce event, 4th Annual Asbury Park Restaurant Tour. Take place April 26th from noon until approximately 6 p.m. This is an event where they close down Press Plaza and sell tickets to, I think, 5 or 6 restaurants. People actually walk around the downtown. There was some emails going back and forth about the fees for this event. We did not charge an application fee for this. The only fee that's being charged is the road closure fee on this event. Any questions on that? The next one is a new event, the 1st Annual Women's Weekend New Jersey Inc. event to take place September 17th through the 20th. This was an application that first came in through the Q-Spot. But now they've actually formed a corporation to actually run this event. And it'll take place actually Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday's event will all be at clubs or restaurants, and Saturday and Sunday's events will be on the beach and the boardwalk. One of the request that they made actually was they want to do a motorcycle show on the boardwalk. They would bring their motorcycles up, not riding them onto the boardwalk, but bringing them up on the boardwalk, approximately take 1 block of the boardwalk, and we'll also have vendors there. We told them that they would have to go to Madison Marquette to make sure that Madison Marquette was okay with any vendors that were in that event. The Special Events Committee did approve this and recommends that you also approve it. The total fees for this event are $1,700, and we've already collected the application fee of $50 for this one. Is there any questions on this? Okay. The last one is a wedding to take place June 20th on the 2nd Avenue Beach at 7 p.m. Total fees for that were $250, which we've already collected. And that's it.
Thank you.
Just, Tom, for the
Sure.
women's event, it says the fee is $50. Am I looking at the right application?
That's the application fee.
Oh, okay,
It's, the total fees are $1,700 for that event.
okay.
Thank
Tom,
you.
I
Yep.
have just, and it's not about special events, but are you going to be here later when we do our comments, or should I ask you a question
Sure,
now?
you can ask me now.
So I was just wondering, as it's set up now for mercantile licenses, if someone comes into the city and wants to get a mercantile license, could you just walk me very quickly through the process? Would they go see you? Is that the first step?
Well, no, the first step is to take zoning compliance. They have to go and get, it's $20 to get a zoning compliance fee.
So there, and how does a person know where to go? Right, so do they come and they go through the door and do they start with, they just know that, how do they know they need to go to,
Well, hopefully they call me.
they call
And,
you, so you're the
yes.
point person, the
Yeah.
first point of contact should be
Yeah,
you.
I have a checklist of things, which is on the website, of things to do. And one of the things is to come and see me first, so we can go over all them. And then the first step is to zoning compliance. They get that at construction. Once the zoning officer approves or disapproves that, it's really a compliance thing. Are you allowed to have that type of business wherever you're going to try to locate that? That sets off the mercantile license. So once you get approval for your zoning, you go to Denise Brown and get a a mercantile application. You complete that and file that, and then that also kicks off all the inspections that happen with your thing. And you don't actually get your mercantile license until all your inspections are done.
Right, okay. But if somebody's asking me, you're the point person?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Tom, do you just want to do a brief update on the Main Street sign? I know that you were on the phone with.
Yes, we're very close.
Okay.
We're on the phone today talking with the sign company, Daytronics. On-site needs to open the router to connect the Verizon service and the Daytronics sign software, actually. So we would have done it today, but on-site didn't have a certain wrench that they needed to get into the sign, so we're going to do it tomorrow.
Okay.
And everybody say a prayer, please. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, the next matter is we have 2 items to be presented by Jenna Scott from the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, Bureau of Coastal Engineering / Army Corps of Engineers. Ms. Scott, can you please come forward?
Good evening.
Would you like us to sit down and speak, or?
Whatever you're comfortable.
Do you want to use the...
Just want to introduce Jennifer Talhausen with the Army Corps of Engineers and Bill Lipton, manager of the Bureau of Coastal Engineering.
Yeah, I want to thank Mayor and Council for allowing us to come and speak to you and explain the project that we do in Asbury Park and the rest of the project for the rest of Monmouth County while we're here. And I see that you want a little explanation on the proposed dredging project. I do know something about it. I wasn't aware of that being the topic until I just got here.
That doesn't have to be talked about tonight.
I can answer your questions and you know kind of the status of where things are at, so I can answer your questions.
Okay,
So should we start? There are 2 items on the agenda for presentation tonight. The first being a request for right of entry agreement for temporary storage / staging area within Fisherman's parking lot for future beach replenishment projects. So we'll start with that matter.
Correct.
All right, well, I'm going to let Jen give an overview of the whole project.
Can you all see this?
Yeah, we're here. And if not,
Okay, you have it pronounced. So just to put everything in context, and I'll be as brief as I can, I'm just going to go back in time a little bit. The Army Corps of Engineers partnered with the state of New Jersey and all the local municipalities from Seabright, New Jersey, all the way down to Manasquan, to design what we call the Atlantic Coast of New Jersey, Sandy Hook to Barnegat Inlet Beach Erosion Control Project. Now, the Seabright to Manasquan is just sections 1 and 2. That's managed by my office in New York City. Everything south is Philadelphia District, so I'm not even going to talk about that. But I'm going back in time because I first want to let you know this entire reach is one large project. Even though we build it and we nourish it in separate contracts, it's one large project. And so we finished the first section in 1999, where we did Seabright to Ocean Township. And then section 2 we completed in 2001, where we went from Asbury Park to Manasquan. So some of you might remember us back in 2001 doing the initial beach work. So there's that's the entire project. Now, one thing to note is the work upcoming is what we're calling the Elron to Lock Arbor Reach. Now, this small part of the project, which falls into the overall project, was never constructed. We weren't allowed access to the beach in that area, and so because we didn't have the easements, we weren't able to do the actual beach work. So this entire beach erosion control project was constructed, except we had a hole in the middle of it. So I'm just going to keep moving down the timeline there.
Just so I'm clear, which towns didn't allow you to do your project? Did you just say?
The
Okay.
Elmhorn section, Long Branch, Deal, the village of Allenhurst, and
Lock Harbor.
Borough of Allenhurst, Village of Long.
We're a Long Branch.
Okay.
And so that was never constructed. And so I'll get back to that part, but I want to focus on Asbury Park. So I was here last year with the state of New Jersey, and we had a great partnership with all the municipalities to do the Hurricane Sandy repair and restoration work. So the Asbury Park beach field was one of 4 contracts where we renourished this entire section of the project, except for that one hole. And so really we spent close to $100 million renourishing, which means putting sand back, repairing and restoring all the damage that was done by Hurricane Sandy, and actually bringing the project up to its original design. And so we had a great project here in Asbury Park. We placed nearly 1 million cubic yards from Asbury to Avon. A third of this project is Asbury Park. The total contract cost last year was approximately $22 million. So again, a third of that money went into the Asbury Park beach field. And we had great support from the city, and we appreciated it, and thank you still for that. So I think that was, generally a great success. And so moving forward, is there anything else I wanted to cover?
I want everyone to know too that initial construction of this project was a cost share between the federal government, the state of New Jersey, and the municipalities. The work that Jen just discussed was the emergency post-storm work that was authorized in the Sandy supplemental bill in Congress, which was 100% federal funding. The work that's upcoming, we completed for the whole coast of New Jersey. The repairs of all the federally authorized projects that were constructed have been completed. Now we're moving into the next phase of, as part of the Sandy supplemental bill, we received funding to complete the authorized but unconstructed projects. That section of Monmouth County is one of 5 of the other projects that our office is working on with the board. And that is also 100% federal funding. So the state of New Jersey and the local communities, that is the one good thing that has come out of the storm is we got the funding to build these projects at no additional cost to the local municipalities.
So, and it's just my nature, when you're going to add something, I just got to add something too. So 1999, when Asbury Park was done, Asbury Park paid its fair share.
Correct.
But Lock Harbor, Deal, Allenhurst, Elbron, 4 of the richest communities in New Jersey said, we don't want it, so they paid 0, so now they're getting it for free. Just my response, go ahead.
Well, that's true.
Just my response, thank you, go ahead.
But they received a lot of damage, which is why they changed their mind.
Yeah, so
At whose expense? Okay, we're going to be here all night, let's go with the presentation.
So as Bill mentioned, we did last year's work at full federal expense, and like you said, that was a silver lining to what happened, the one silver lining perhaps. But moving forward, we have another program. It's to build authorized but unconstructed projects. That includes this hole that I mentioned. And as the mayor mentioned, it wasn't built before, and now we have full federal funding to build it. And we do have the local support of those 4 municipalities because they did receive a lot of damage that they wouldn't have received had they gone forward with the project. So
Lots of towns did the projects and also received damage.
that's
Right.
very true.
So let's
That's very
just
true.
be careful with our language.
That's true, and it's not. A lot of times it'll come up that they're built higher up on a bluff. They don't receive the same damage, and that's why I want to just stress the fact that this is one large project. The sand that we place in Belmar and Manasquan helps to feed the beaches in Asbury Park. And everything that we put in Long Branch helps to feed the beaches north of Seabright and Monmouth Beach. So when we look at this project, it's hard to look at them in sections because everybody's so different. The topography is different, the damages were different. But when we built at the core and designed it, we look at it as one large project. And so now we have the opportunity and the support to build this last section. And this last section covers, like I mentioned before, Elbron to Lock Arbor. It's about 3.5 miles. It's 1.4 million cubic yards. Includes outfall extensions, road modifications, and we've already awarded it to a contractor, Manson Construction. So also included in this timeline, but not in this contract, is going to be the automation of the gatehouse at Deal Lake. It's not part of this contract, but it'll be happening concurrently or at the same time. We've been working with Don Brockle to automate the sluice gate there, so that's sort of happening along the same line. So Manson Construction, they are a different contractor than did the work for you in Great Lakes. And so they have identified, what their schedule's going to be. We have a pre-con coming up. And as Jen is going to talk a little bit more about the staging area, we've asked the city of Asbury to help support this contract by providing a staging area for the work. And so...
and again, only because I'm a little late in the game with this, so I'm not sure I understand this correctly. Elbron, DL, Allenhurst, and Lock Arbor are going to benefit from this project. And I'm asking a question because I don't think I got whatever was sent today via email, or if I did, I didn't have time to read it.
That's right from you. You're right. Yeah.
So you're going to put your stuff in Asbury for the work that you're doing for those towns?
Yeah, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And just one reason that we are looking at this area is because they never went forward with our project, there's very little or no beach at all there. And so we need storage areas for pipe, things like that. And there's just very little storage in that reach because they never got a beach. So much erosion occurred, and that's not, that's unfortunate, but that's where the situation is, and that's why we had to reach out to the city for your support in moving forward. And also because it's part of the whole project, we're looking to other municipalities to support this, even though it's different municipalities as part of the overall project.
And how long is the project going to take?
The project is going to last, the actual beach fill work will last about 4 months, maybe April until July, but then they'll be doing the outfall work past that, so we're looking at September 2015.
Well, when we met last Thursday, we were told 2 months, and we were told you'd be gone by the end of April.
Well, I'll let Jenna talk more
Okay.
about staging area and any discussion. I wasn't
That's
there
the whole
last
project she's talking
week.
about.
Okay.
The whole contract is from April.
Okay, let's just talk about Asbury staging area. Okay.
And while you're getting that set up, this process feels different than when you did the Asbury project. Did you guys come in front of the council at that time and ask to use the lot as a staging area? Because it was used as a staging area
Right.
prior.
We had,
And was that process the same, that you came like this in front of the council?
we didn't come in front of the council, but we had representation from, I guess, the town administrator at the pre-construction meetings. We always had a member of the municipality represented there. We had the easements built.
Yeah, we coordinated with the municipality. I met with the municipality myself. We had the easements for the project, and we have an existing state aid agreement with the city of Asbury Park for the project.
I was just wondering if it was different.
We could have come before you if the city wanted us to come before the council, we would have. It was basically, we're coming to town, we're gonna do your renourishment at no cost to you, we'll coordinate with you. We didn't need any resolution or ordinance in order for that to occur. We had an existing agreement and we could proceed under that agreement. We met with the administrator and the mayor at the time, and we proceeded. That's how we handled it through every municipality.
And is it different at this point? You need a resolution or an ordinance, or you still have the same agreement?
Well, the situation here is...
They need another easement.
Here is we do not have a permanent easement for...
Okay. That was just what I was wondering. I was wondering what we're specifically asking for. That was not different last time.
We had authorization to temporarily use this area.
You had
We have
authorization.
a perpetual easement for the footprint of the beach here and here as it extends. Basically this is the line of the beach fill limit of the project. So we have an easement, perpetual easement for this area. What we're looking is to get access from the paved road basically into this area or even this area to stage material. They're gonna start the work from south to north. The 2 months came in, we realized that you did not want to provide access for the full project, so we were assuming that the contractor would need at least the staging area at one end of the project to start the work. Beach fills go in a linear progression. You know, they start at one end, as they start moving, the equipment, pipe, everything goes with them to the other end of the project.
But I'm gonna, like, the contractor would absolutely love to have and use this throughout the entirety of the contract. If I understand that you've had discussions and 2 months is what's on the table now, but if you're still willing to consider the overall contract.
Why would we let them have it for, when other towns said basically, I mean in layman's terms, go take a walk off a short bridge? Why would we, are you kidding? Make Deal build you a spot for it.
But Deal has plenty of spots. They have
I mean, that's insane.
Phillips Avenue Pavilion
We're
is
gonna be using
10 times as big as
We
that.
are using
Exactly.
the casino.
Do you have that in writing? And I know she's going to ask,
Yes.
okay, so
Right.
you have
I
further,
would need to see that. So in 2 months, Deal says you can move all of your stuff over to us.
We have Deal Casino for the full length of the project.
Right, but it's.
Okay.
But Beachville work and Alpha work, them using only that contract area, they're gonna have to find another spot further south. And so that's what we're trying to find.
Well, they could do Lock Arbor, Ellenhurst, who said no to you guys initially,
We
right?
have a lot of beach.
Until they pump the beach, there's no way to bring all the equipment from the staging area at Deal Casino down to the starting.
I understand your point. We wouldn't be here if we had really an alternative other than asking.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It just seems like insanity to me.
And I mean, that staging area, to be honest with you, so the big point is access to the big jetty for fishermen and surfers.
Correct.
And-
We would maintain access at all times. We would fence off a walk-in area. so that they
Right,
can
but
access
the access, I mean, most of the guys drive in
Oh, yeah,
and park their cars. So
and
is
we
there
could
any way to
adjust this triangle,
back
this
that up
rectangle, Yep.
significantly so that the
Well, we could
front
turn
half
it,
of the party,
and
yeah,
use the back half
maybe,
with the median is the divider there.
right, maybe.
And that would leave all the parking here and walking access out here. And then we would put that orange safety fence up to delineate where the equipment would be moving.
And actually, the contractor would love to meet with you if you want to talk with them specifically, because I know you may not have had the best experience in the past. These are new guys. The city of Long Branch has worked with them, and we reference Chuck Woolley is happy to talk with you.
So
So
are they going to provide us with guarantees that they're going to be out within 2 months? And if they're not, what happens?
We meet weekly with them, you know, we make sure that they.
Well,
Technically,
if your
they'd be
agreement,
trespassing.
if your,
Right.
yeah, if your agreement with the state and through the easement is for 2 months, we'll hold them to 2 months. If you decide to work with them separately to have an agreement with only the contract past those 2 months, then that's between the city and them. That can happen as well. But as far as if you have an agreement with the state for those 2 months, and only those 2 months, we'll make sure they're out in 2 months.
So this might be a bizarre question, Fred. So if we're essentially renting, right, Deal, Lock Arbor, Ellenhurst, and Elberon are renting our land for a period of time to make this project, because they're benefiting, right? We're not benefiting, we already did it. Why can't we get something from them for giving them our land for 2
Well,
months?
this isn't their contract. This is a federally authorized project run by the Army Corps of Engineers. The state of New Jersey is the local sponsor. Okay? The municipalities have no contractual agreement with the Corps of Engineers. They do with the state of New Jersey. Same in Asbury Park. This project has 3 partners in it. This Corps, the state, and all the local communities. And it's one large project for all the oceanfront of Monmouth County. Unfortunately, they were not constructed at the initial construction. Believe me, they wish they were after the storm. Hindsight is always 20/20. If they were, this would have already already been done. It probably would have been included in this actual contract that we did your team. But we couldn't do it at the same time as restoring the Orr. So it's not Deal coming to you, it's not Lock Harbor or Allenhurst.
They
It's
just
the state
benefit
of
from
New
the
Jersey.
project. They're the beneficiary of the project for this stage of it.
Reach.
And north, okay.
And it's not just them, it's the state of New Jersey and the federal government. We're all beneficiaries of it.
Maybe, depending on how you feel about beach replenishment.
Correct, your perspective, but for the Congress of the United States, this is a
Sure.
federally authorized project.
Right, of course, well,
Okay.
we won't get into that. So, actually, I don't love it. But I would love to hear a little bit about the timeline for the dredging project, because that, I think, is something that,
We gotta get through one project at a time. They're two different projects.
they are two different projects, but,
But there's nobody here to
Joe,
make
I
that
can
clear.
explain, I can explain it.
Time out. Let's finish this presentation.
Okay.
And then if you have questions.
Okay.
And it's time's not too late, or else, we can bump other people that notified us that they were gonna be here. They did not notify us. They were asked Friday, are you gonna be here? We did not get notification till Monday that they were gonna show up. We did not get the package till an hour ago.
Right.
So if we have to bump their second presentation back to get other people who did respond to us here in a timely fashion,
Okay.
that's gonna happen.
okay.
So Jenna, go ahead.
I would have to hold, okay.
What?
No, good.
I can certainly come back with a presentation.
That's what Eric recommended, because he said he wasn't ready yet to make the presentation tonight, and that's why he's not here.
That's the Deal Lake dredging.
Right, and that's what,
Eric works for me, so.
right, okay.
I can, like I said, I can answer some of your questions if you want, or we can certainly
Let's
come
just,
back
let's just
with
finish
another
this one,
presentation.
please.
Okay, so, I just want to go over the, part of the contract is for the contract to maintain safety fencing around all their equipment and storage materials. We'll maintain the access to the drawings, and the area will be restored to before the previous contract was awarded.
And so that's what we,
And that's on a sidebar agreement that's not part of the easement that we don't have.
I had emailed it to you earlier, I have a copy of it.
Okay, just be,
If you would like it.
yeah, we're gonna need that, please.
Yes.
I saw you send it to Tony, and I don't know if Tony made us copies or not. I emailed them, please make us copies. I don't see them up here.
And that's certainly, that's just a draft that can be modified.
Right, okay. And in that, we asked for Jenna, Jesse, myself, Don Samet, Tony Nuccio, and Joe Pilato met with Jenna and Georgianne and Cindy Medando from Trenton about this last Thursday. And we went into this very, dead on arrival. And we came out of it like it could be workable, but we're gonna want certain things in writing with guarantees. And one of the guarantees is, like Deputy Mayor Quinn said, we want it guaranteed come the 2 months, Deal, Allenhurst, and everybody's going to say, hey, guess what? You can't use Deal Casino as a stationary. You
I
can't
can't
use-
imagine Deal Casino's gonna let you use them during the height of the season.
They've already signed up.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, so that's,
Okay.
we'll just ask for a copy of that in the agreement.
Yep,
Okay.
oh, that's fine.
Okay. So Jenna, do you have anything else to add?
This rectangle here, we can manipulate it. We can put it on the west side of this parking lot only. Just have to have an access here. And we can also require the contractor to plate and put additional sand over the flume.
We are gonna require that.
Right.
That flume, our office constructed, we have very much a vested interest in that.
Again, at the Thursday meeting, and it was a lack of communication. We were reading the paper, it was a 2-year contract, we were reading this, so that was a very good meeting as far as everybody got together and found out, no, it's not 2 years, it's 2 months. Yes, we want the flume protected, not caved in by bulldozers and everything, be it
Trust me.
metal plates, planks, sand, whatever, and we wanted access to the jetty by fishermen and surfers, and we wanted, again, you're not using the entire parking lot like you did before, you're using just a portion of it. Okay, questions from up here?
Yeah, just a couple. The easement agreement, you've done these in other municipalities by resolution. I think it may have to be done by ordinance.
I know that in the past, when the city conveyed an easement with regard to the prior construction that was done, the beach replenishment project, we did an ordinance. And it was a public process where an ordinance was approved by the council, probably within the last 2 years.
I know the council's concerned about contingencies as well. It's like two months, you're out of here. What are the penalties going to be? What kind of, this is gonna be a concern of the mayor and council. You know, come 2 months, didn't wanna be in an argument with the contractor.
What was your starting time frame?
Start April, they would start.
We would have enough time doing it. We'd have enough time doing an ordinance, okay.
But just to be clear,
Well,
you
starting in
could
April.
use the
Wait,
Deal
wait,
Casino
if-
lot for the entire project. No, I'm not saying that you want to, I understand that you don't want to, but conceivably you could.
No,
You can't.
you can't bring equipment or,
Problem is the beaches too
Materials
there,
down the beach.
there's not enough
Right
beach
now.
to run equipment from,
They need
off-road equipment from Deal Casino to Lock Harbor to start the project. That's the problem.
There's no sand there to drive on.
The whole length.
So when they
So-
go drive south, they.
So you're gonna be filling in and
Basically,
moving,
we're
filling
looking,
in.
we're looking for a
We would
a
use Deal
spot to start at the south end and work north.
So then as they place sand, they can start moving north, because they have a place to drive.
Couldn't you start here, move south, and then move north?
We can't start south, north and go south because of the way sand moves up to Sandy Hook. We'd be placing.
Hence the
sand-
problem with replenishment.
You're
Yes.
pumping against the
I
flow.
know. So,
The sand moves away.
so this is what the state, and the,
It moves that quick though, that you can't, you're saying you're gonna put it down, and you're not able to get down there before it moves away?
it
Well,
moves
it's,
fast.
well,
I mean, that's
how,
very
well,
quick.
no, how it works is they can, if a contractor, we put out a solicitation. Contractor bids on a project based on, I got this box, I gotta put this sand in. The sand drifts this way. If we told them then how to pump from north to south versus any way you want, it would have been a different unit price. to
Okay,
do
that's
that.
fair, so it's not your
It would cost
contract.
more to do it.
Yeah, that's a better explanation.
And then,
Well, if your starting date's April 1st, you're not gonna be out by April 30th if you need 2 months. So we're down to 1 month, because
No, I'm-
we said end of April, we wanted you out.
no,
Before-
I understand that, so
Okay.
we'll do as much as we can in that time period.
Okay.
And then past that time period, I mean, Deputy Mayor Quinn said something about reimbursement for the use of it. You may want to have a separate conversation with the contractor.
They can't do that, but the contractor can.
We're limited in how we reimburse them. Contractors are a whole different story, so if you may be willing to speak with them and see, if working with them might be better than,
The contractor for, just so I'm clear.
Our contractor is Manson Construction Company.
Okay.
Doing the actual replenishment.
Yeah.
So we would reach out to them and say, hey, the four richest towns want to use our land.
Using this past April 30th, what you offer, that you are more than welcome to do
All
it.
right, sure.
And they are quite honestly, expecting it, I suppose. So they do that with all these contracts, so. Most of the time, we're working in this area and you're benefiting directly from it, so it just happens. But this is a different scenario, so.
In hindsight, we would have gotten this easement.
Before you
when we came
designed
and
your
was doing
project.
work In Asbury, but we didn't. There was so much work going on, and there still is. We were two small offices, both the court and the state actually doing this work, and there was just so much going on that we didn't have the whole big picture in mind at that time. Well, we would have asked you for this easement at that time, because this is like we said, this is a large project, not an Asbury Park project or a Deal project. It's the entire oceanfront of
Okay, does anybody have any other questions about this project? Do you want a brief presentation of the,
And Mayor, before we move to the next project, in order to move this matter forward, we would need to have an easement, a lease, whatever the actual document is, prepared, reviewed, approved,
which she
submitted
sent
to
a
council.
draft copy for you to review, and they weren't expecting that to be signed
No,
tonight
we're
or
expecting
voted
it
on.
today.
This could have been put off to the next meeting instead of
Okay.
put the next subject, but since they're there.
So we'll hopefully have that ready for your review at the next council meeting, for your consideration, with terms and conditions that are acceptable, that we would be willing to recommend to the mayor and council.
And towns have done these multiple ways. Most towns do them by resolution, some do them by ordinance. We'll leave that up to your experience on how you want it.
And I just want to say, we do appreciate you just considering the 2 months. So
Oh,
it is
thank you.
appreciated.
And thank you for presenting.
We know we're asking you for a favor. We know that. We're standing here asking you for a favor, and we do know that. And, this is a long-term project. This isn't a one-time thing. We have an agreement for 50 years with the Corps.
We can
So
just-
not that this matters, but I think if Lock Arbor, DL or Elbron, and we needed a favor, I hope that they would then remember this favor. Right? That would be great.
We'll mention that you're providing this for marketing to us at our construction.
The only thing we've all finally agreed upon is like, the sand flows, I guess you guys, the sand flows north, so instead of sending the barges out 100 miles to get the sand, you can just go off Sandy Hook and pick up all Asbury Park and Long Branch of sand every year. I mean, I don't know why, it's with notching the jetties, is it gonna help whatsoever? It's just gonna make more sand disappear quicker, different subject, we were totally opposed to that, but somehow you guys got 3 out of 6. And, now, Joe, do you wanna ask a couple of questions on the dewater?
Yeah, I guess, I would also like to, I appreciate that, I know the Corps changed your ratio from 10-to-1 to 20-to-1 with this last replenishment project, and it absolutely made a difference with the fishermen and the surfers, so we all appreciate that. And I guess if the timing of the dredging and dewatering was my concern, I wanted to, the lake needs to be dredged, and I just wanted to make sure that the timing happened in a way that it wasn't happening during our high season.
And just for purposes of clarification, this is item number B, under the items presented by Jenna Scott, proposal for temporary staging / dewatering area for upcoming Deal Lake dredging project.
Okay, so the state of New Jersey received funds from the NRCS, federal funds, post-Sandy, emergency funds for this lake restoration. We got money for here and Twilight Lake. Twilight Lake is in bad. That work just got wrapped up. This work, there we were lucky enough, the lake was all in one municipality, and the municipality had land we could work on. Here it's a lot more complicated. We have many communities, as you know, that border the lake, and we also have no real, this is the place we can use to do the dewatering. There's Don, you can jump in anytime here, because we've been working.
No, we're gonna keep it brief. We're gonna keep it brief, guys.
Okay. So, right now, we have just over $1 million. It's not enough to dredge the whole lake or solve all the problems. It's $1 million we got from the federal government that has a timeline associated with it. My understanding is, though, I'm not exactly sure of the date, it's either July 1 or July 31st, we got an extension to, and if we don't have the work done by then, this money goes away. Unfortunately, we also all know that there's a major herring run in Deal Lake, and we can't dredge during the herring window. So that puts us at a major problem in that we can only really dredge in June and July. That's where we stand right now.
Wesley, we're talking about.
No, you're talking about Deal Lake.
Oh, Deal Lake, okay.
So
And the money
we are going to try and get a further extension, but I know it was extended once or twice already, and I don't know if we will get another extension to be able to dredge in the fall or winter.
Yeah, that would be, that's a tough time to dredge in that
I
spot.
agree. We agree. You know, the road gets a lot busier. There's a lot more stuff going on in the summer.
The smell becomes obnoxious. The smell becomes obnoxious. They've been trying to dredge Shark River for 14 years, and nobody wants that in their backyard, so why would we put it in our front yard in the middle of the summer? So
I'm not disagreeing.
Okay,
I'm
so-
just saying, we have an opportunity to dredge. It will benefit Deal Lake, the Deal Lake Commission, and the communities that border it. It's really a different program, and DEP is facilitating it with the Deal Lake Commission. My office would be the ones bidding the work out and overseeing the construction. Like I said, we can certainly come back with the other players involved and explain it some more, but as of right now, I believe there is a hard deadline on the money, and we have hard time frames in which we can do the work.
When can we find out about another extension? How quickly can that be answered?
I'll raise that tomorrow.
All right, I appreciate it.
With the commissioner.
Okay.
I think Eric, who works for you, sent something late this afternoon to Tony Nuccio, who's not here, that Fred, maybe Tony can forward that to you tomorrow.
I got
Okay, just to take a look at it. And that was the one that was confusing to me, because the original draft that was attached, it asked for 5 years. And it goes back to the last time it was given out was like 1980, so.
Well, that's,
Well,
that's
so somebody said-
what that is,
okay.
that's
Well-
our standard disposal agreement. That's,
But, okay.
he probably just provided.
Okay,
that as-
what was sent to Asbury Park asked for 5 years, and like I say.
No, that
okay.
would be modified to what, really the time frame we could work in.
Okay,
And you're looking to store, I feel like I'm missing something again. You're looking to store the dredge,
dirt, because it's too filled with water, to de-water.
It's basically,
We put it
we're
here.
looking for a temporary use of some open space area.
well, now Elberon, DL, and Lock Arbor owe us a favor, so why can't we store it in one of their towns? Of course they're gonna say no. Of course they're gonna say no, which is totally my point.
Unless we close the road, we don't.
We'll put it at DL Casino.
It's an option.
Can't truck it wet. So that's the problem.
That's the
If
problem.
we could truck it wet, we wouldn't need any more.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So, Don Brown with the LA Commission. We're working with the state very closely, but, one of the key, there's two things. Obviously, the punishment is gonna could be a conflict. And also, every park in conjunction with the LA Commission submitted a request for over $5 million to continue the dredging. We originally put in for almost $6 million worth of dredging. We only got one. So we asked the state for additional funding, and that's being reviewed right now. Maybe it'll be really nice to give us some extra, so we can complete that whole section of it, because $1 million only takes care of 1/4 of that open area between the woods and the ocean, only 1/4 of it. So we're hoping to get the rest of it, the whole, basically the railroad, with the state request that the Asbury Park submitted for us. So that, with that, maybe we can get the delay until the fall and winter time, and that could be a justification. And we are working with politicians right now, trying to make that happen.
If that does happen, that would be great, but that would require a much larger area for dewatering to do all that work in a short
And it
time.
wouldn't be just Asbury, it would be interlinked, it would be probably.
Okay, what do we have next?
All right.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is going to be presented by representatives of Madison Asbury Retail LLC with regard to their plan to address alleged waterfront defaults. Please feel free to come forward.
Yeah. Which ones do you want? Just kidding. Good evening. Carrie Turner, General Manager of the Asbury Park Boardwalk, on behalf of Madison Marquette. Have with me tonight also Anselm Fusco, SVP of Madison Marquette, as well as Phil Moss of PW Moss and Associates, who is our structural engineer. We're here in response to your January 14th letter asking that we appear to discuss two specific issues from our SDA, and then a secondary letter from the 14th to walk you through a report of all of the retail projects that are covered by the SDA. So I think what we would like to do, if we can, is start with the two notice of default items. One is the Fifth Avenue band shell, the other being the First Avenue art wall. We will start with the band shell, and I just want to maybe tee it up a little bit briefly, and then I will hand it over to Anselm and Phil to talk a little bit more about what's going on. If you saw in your report, the SDA requires that we design a replacement band shell structure suitable for approximately 200 seats on the roof of the Fifth Avenue Pavilion. It asked that this design be completed by I forget the exact date, but within 2010. While we have made efforts and hired plenty of professionals, it's been a frustrated process and we have not met that deadline. We received your notice and we are proceeding diligently to prepare the designs that are required and have them submitted. As we stated in our response letter, we will have a TRC application filed with the city by February 19th, which we think is within the 30-day period in the SDA. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Anselm and Phil to just give you a little bit of information about the bandshell project, and then we'll speak about the art wall.
Mayor and Council, excuse me. As you know, we have had a number of kind of fits and starts on this project over the years. Essentially, it boils down to our desire on the roof, not simply to repair the bandshell that was there, but to turn the roof into something that was essentially programmatically more diverse, that offered the opportunity to create another space usable by the public. In this instance, what we're really talking about is a combination of bandshell and audience space at the southern end, and at the northern end, a flatter area where there could be events, weddings, that sort of thing. The essence of that exercise really depends on three things. You need an architect and a design that is achievable. You need a structural engineer, and ideally, you also need a tenant, because part of the premise is that there is an integration of the activities that go on upstairs, catering, and that sort of thing. We have, over the years, had one or two of those things, though I would suggest never really found the right team, and that's part of why we're sitting here at this late date, continuing this conversation. We now have, through a couple of different avenues, come to what we are confident is the right design team. We have an architect, Cooper Robertson, who we met as a result of the rebuild by design process that went on post Sandy. We met some folks from that team, including a gentleman named Earl Jackson, who is with Cooper Robertson. We were very kind of impressed by his approach to matters of the boardwalk, matters of resilience, as well as his design abilities. We also have met Phil Moss, who has an extensive background in the rehabilitation of existing structures, the sort of reuse of buildings, as well as more esoteric structural systems. And I'm gonna, I think with that, turn it over to Phil to kind of explain a little bit about what we're actually talking about in terms of the structure. And I will observe that over the years, I feel some of the engineers we've had, frankly, didn't necessarily really understand what they were dealing with. And with that, I will pass it over to Phil to kind of tell you a little bit more about what we're dealing with and the way it creates some constraints and complexities. Adding to what Carrie said, we will be submitting plans by the 19th. Obviously, it's an iterative process involving the engineering and the architecture, but we are confident that we are coming to a solution that will be able to meet all of our objectives as I kind of laid them out for you. So with that, Phil.
Well, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the structure. It's a precast concrete structure, which works very well for what it was originally intended to do, and it does not really lend itself to a different type of use. As it was originally done, it was a concrete deck, concrete plank sitting on concrete beams, sitting on concrete columns with fixed seats bolted to the concrete. Anything other than fixed seats has a different live load requirement that has to be accommodated. So that presents some issues in of itself, trying to find a way to make the existing structure accommodate the new use. In addition, anything you put on top in terms of a canopy or any other structure to create a flat system adds additional load to an additional lateral load to that. And we actually started working, I think it was in 13. We started looking at trying to come up with some ideas. We've come up with a couple different systems that permit the use, but we keep coming into these ideas, and Nancy comes up with these ideas, and I say, no, that's not going to work. And we've been kicking it around. We're very close, but the gist of it is it's it's a pile of concrete blocks that are stitched together that are unyielding, both in terms of being concrete and in terms of allowing us to do other things. Again, we're pretty close to that, but it has taken quite a bit of time to get to that point.
And the thing that I would add is, I mean, implicit in what Phil says when you hear it is, well, why don't you just rebuild what was there? And the answer to that is, from the time of the SDA, we have believed that that roof represents an opportunity to better engage the public with what is a truly fantastic view. And if you think about, the way a watermark, for instance, works and what it enables you to do, to have the public up on the roof, not simply for an event should one be programmed, but in a much more dynamic way, to have a wedding, to have, you think about, Tom and his beach weddings. I mean, our feeling has been from the beginning that it's a great space up there. I know some of you have seen it, others of you, I mean, obviously we're happy to take you up there. It's a special spot, and so our desire to increase its programming by adding these other reasons to be up there has kind of underpinned frankly, the struggle we've been having to find a balance of, and the other piece to it, obviously, well, maybe not obviously, the other piece to that is, it's up on the roof, to be able to use it when it's raining, to be able to extend the season a little bit. What we've been looking at are ways of creating roof structure, creating some sort of shelter from the wind, and from lateral rain. The idea being ultimately that if this is an open air thing, you can use it a few months out of the year. If we're able to introduce roof elements, we can really extend the season, and therefore, again, the reasons for people to come down to the boardwalk in the spring and in the fall, and again, in that perpetual kind of battle that we're in to try and expand the shoulders and give people more reasons to come down to the boardwalk outside of the June, July, August window.
So if I may, a specific question that was asked, or what are the steps you're going to take to cure it? And so we said that we would lay out a proposed timeline, so I'm going to lay that out for you, if you don't mind. Like I said, we would submit our initial TRC application. I'm saying by Wednesday the 18th, just because it gives me an extra day in case something copied wrong. That, incidentally, we have a TRC meeting that night for a separate application. In speaking, can I say this, Don? We cannot officially appear that night because on the TRC, because we have not given them sufficient time to review it, but we've asked their indulgence to be able to show them, I guess, a sneak preview, since I'm turning it in that day, or by that day, and I have them convened that night, understanding that it would not be considered an official TRC review. But since I've got the body in front of me, I've got the drawings in front of me, why not say, oh, this is coming soon? That is the plan. Then, understanding that, my understanding is that the professionals need at least 10 days to review it before a TRC meeting could be convened. So I believe that we're looking at a TRC meeting sometime in early March, if we can get one convened. So the way I've laid it out is to complete a TRC review in March or April of 2015. Target a April 2015 City Council meeting. This is following the progression that's laid out in the redevelopment plan. And then targeting a May or June 2015 Planning Board meeting.
For final approval?
Yes.
And is
then-
this for both the band shell and the art wall?
No, the art wall, I have a more accelerated timeframe for you.
All right.
Hopefully. This is for the band shell, and then what we would like to do is to be able to file for building permits by October 1st. With the idea that we don't want to start construction. We have in mind a temporary use in the ground floor space underneath the band shell, the currently vacant space where we had the art exhibit last summer, and we had some live theater the prior summer. We have a concept that we intend to have in that space on a temporary basis for the summer, and would like to not start construction until that's over, and that will close out probably after the Zombie Walk, first weekend of October. So this would coincide nicely.
So you would have the permits done by October 1?
I would have them filed. I would
Okay,
have
you
them
have them
filed by
filed.
then. I would have it filed. I believe they have a month to turn them around, but I think typically they've never taken that long. And then per the SDA, from the time of the actual planning board approval, we have 30 months, not from the time we file the permits, but from the time that we have the approval. What I query is, does the approval date start on the date that they say yes at the meeting, or the date they memorialize the resolution? That may become important, since there could be, but it's maybe important by 2 weeks. I don't know that it's material to the process.
And the one other thing I would say is, it's 30 months if the project cost is over.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And
Yes, there is a provision, you probably saw it in your report.
If it's over 600.
Correct. If it's above, if we estimate that the entire job is over $600,000, we get 30 months to complete it. And even though we haven't officially finished, we know that to do something, as Anselm said, besides just replace what was there, we estimated it way above $600,000.
But even with your plan, you're losing, and I'm not saying rightfully or wrongly, but you're losing 5 months off the bat from planning board approval to building permits. If you're telling me May is your planning board
Yeah, May,
final
June.
approval, so May, June, July, August, September, October, you're giving up 6 months in your 30.
We
Okay.
Could be, but we don't, I mean, maybe we start earlier. It'd be something we'll have to calculate, Amy, when we figure out what can be done while we have a tenant
Okay.
below.
Okay.
So that is what we have laid out for the band shell. Do you guys have questions on that while we have?
I'm going to ask one.
Sure.
And some, one of your issues you said were you need an architect, you need an engineer, you need a tenant. You're designing for a tenant at this point?
we have a group with whom we are speaking. We don't have anything signed. Nevertheless, there's sufficient enthusiasm for the project that they are providing us essentially with their perspective and their expertise, and were they in fact, if in fact they do end up the tenant, this is the way they would like it to look. So it's not a hard and fast thing, and we're hoping that they end up being the tenant, because otherwise we'll kind of have something that's informed by their wishes that we can only hope will match some other tenant's needs.
The next item is the First Avenue Pavilion Art Wall, which is on the western side facing Ocean Avenue. Don't go too far. Some of you may know that this, I don't know if I'll have to take you through the entire history. It's described in the SDA as an important feature to be installed on the side of the building for us to complete the First Avenue Pavilion, if you will. The original SDA called for a design competition. We worked with Planning Board to change that, to be able to sort of sole source and select an artist. We did receive conceptual approval from the Planning Board in late 2013, and we have only recently signed a contract with an artist to get that moving. And we, however, having conceptual approval already granted, it's our understanding that we are able to reappear before Planning Board with our, where we left with Planning Board was we will come back to you, we will fully flesh out this conceptual approval, talk a little bit more about the constructability of it, figure out how it's actually going to sit on the building, and come back to you with some drawings for them to bless it and for us to move forward. And so the timeline that we have proposed on this item is that we can submit a planning board application by the 18th as well, February 18th. We're hoping to actually turn that in prior to that, but by the 18th. If we get it in prior, we'd be targeting February 13th, which we hope would allow us to be on the March 2nd planning board meeting, although, okay, I was going to say, so we can't dictate these things, so we can turn in the application. If March 2nd is full, then we'll have to appear on the March 30th, if that agenda is not already full. So we would then, assuming that we get the high sign, we would need roughly 4 weeks to have the construction drawings prepared. We may be able to shorten that if there's no material changes at planning board. And then we're asking for 3 months to fabricate and install with a estimated completion date of July 1st, 2015. So those drawings would also be, and if Anselm wants to speak a little bit more.
Well, the only thing I would like to add is on this one, I mean, this is obviously a final condition as far as the building, and one of the things that will happen And this by way of simply observing that we are going to pursue this as quickly and as aggressively as we can. Completion of the art wall will mark the completion of the project and set us up for a certificate of completion and, ultimately taking the project out of the SDA, and which is something that we want to have happen, in part because it will enable us to obtain a certain amount of financing and help move other pieces of the boardwalk project forward. So completing the art wall and getting the certificate of completion on the First as well as the Third Avenue pavilions, and Carrie, this is in her report that she'll be going through a little bit later. These are high priorities for us. So as to getting the art wall done, I assure you, we are all on the same page about now wanting to complete it and move on.
Other questions about the art wall? Okay, so the other letter requested that I run you through this retail report. So Mayor, how? Go for it? Okay. And I know that you have Don and you have your redevelopment council. So this report was written hopefully to be easy to understand, coming from the SDA, defining things that are in the agreement and so forth. And so the retail projects really mean the individual buildings on the boardwalk. And so the way that the project goes, the way the report goes is that it goes by building or pavilion. The other thing is, just quite simply, the SDA has very specific provisions about some buildings, and it has some very general requirements or provisions about other buildings. And so when we talk about wanting a certificate of completion, and I may not explain this the best, but what that means is that we have finished with all the requirements. There's a process then by which we submit to you and say, hey, we believe that we are finished. You would review it and say, okay, we agree, and we're able to then drop that building out of, everybody's agreeing that we've completed what we want to do. So if we start with First Avenue Pavilion, as Anselm mentioned, we believe that the only items left on this building before we can apply for a certificate of completion are the art wall that was previously discussed. And a few years ago, we had talked about an easement encroachment agreement that we may need. I just discovered today through scrubbing through some files that may or may not be necessary. So it is in your report as something that's an open item that we believed we needed. And I believed it was to cover some of the items, the eyebrows that we call on the buildings that hang out over the boardwalk. And this was simply an administrative piece of paperwork that needed to be done so that we could call the building done.
Is that something required by your title company?
You know, it may be done. It may be something that we need more than you need.
Yeah, it wasn't something requested by the city.
Okay.
My recollection was something from your title company.
Okay. And so it may be in terms of just finishing. It will be something that we have to do, but it'll be something that I'll need to present to you in an effort to get this finished. So for First Avenue Pavilion, that really is it, the art wall, and then coming before you with this easement. And that's the way this is written. It's, here's what we've completed, here's what remains to be completed, and we shall come back before you for a certificate of completion. Are there other questions on First Ave? The next is Third Avenue Pavilion, and generally speaking, again, all that we have to do there, all that remains to be done is to live up to the provisions of planning board approvals. The most recent planning board approvals we received for this building were to finish the rooftop railings and planters, to install an exterior trash enclosure, and a tenant neon sign. And as I stated in the report, we've selected a contractor for the rooftop planters and railings and the exterior trash enclosure, and we believe that that work will be done by May 1st. Permits were filed this week for that work. So once the signage and everything there is done, we would then, again, write to the city, ask for their certificate of completion, and then move forward. Something I will need to discuss with the planning board is there was an item about changing the building's use from temporary to permanent, and that may be something that gets addressed at the planning board level, but that was an outstanding item there that is marked on your report. Fourth Avenue Pavilion, which is where our office is and where we have, it simply asked a few things, that we apply a decorative scheme, which is defined as really paint, which has been done, and that also we reconfigure some of the vacant space, office space that was facing the boardwalk into retail space. And that work has also been done. So we believe that we are in compliance with Fourth Avenue. It's a building that we can come to you for a subsequent SDA agreement on when the time is right. And I believe we maintain the ability to knock that building down in the SDA, should we want to.
The Fourth Ave.
Yeah, and rebuild. So Fifth Avenue Pavilion, it's a couple of things there. Really, it's mainly the band shell that has to be completed. There are some, and again, I'll bring up this term eyebrows, this feature, this exterior undulating feature that's on the outside of the buildings, that's on the First and Third Avenue pavilions that we've not installed on Fifth Avenue, although they were approved. So they will either need, they are now being considered as part of this overall band shell design. So that's something that'll need to be officially, I guess, figuring out how we treat them will have to be part of the overall design, and then will have to be readdressed because they exist as something that is to be installed. And then we also have signed a contract to reinstall the new aluminum storefronts, and that work will be done before the summer season of this year. The permit has already been filed for that work. Anything else on Fifth Avenue? Okay. Sunset Pavilion. Again, we were able to actually get CAFR to allow us to do either demolish or keep the building in place. And so we have applied an exterior decorative scheme to it, i.e. we've painted it. We also put a Shepherd Ferry mural on it as part of the ATP festival that happened several years ago. And it is a building that we will be seeking a subsequent SDA on from you in the future. Convention Hall and Paramount Theater. Several items that are going on, as you know, the biggest of which is probably the sprinkler installation. I'll spare you all the details of the back and forth over the past few years, but in essence, there's a consent order that lays out a time frame for us to do the installation of the sprinklers. The city allowed us to install these sprinklers in phases. 2 of the 4 phases have already been completed. We are starting phase 3 on Monday the 16th, and we believe that we'll be done within 12 weeks with that phase. And there'll be 1 phase remaining to be completed, which is really the exterior promenades of the building. And so timing unclear on that, but we are currently working diligently on the other things. There's a bit of a nexus of structural issues that go with those exterior promenades that we probably need to get figured out before we can say emphatically when we'll have that 4th phase installed. Let's see, that is the sprinklers. We have, there's an issue of the exterior stairs. We had initially thought, if you're familiar with the beach bar in Anchor's Bend, there are sets of stairs onto the beach. The northeast and southeast set of stairs suffered damage under Hurricanes Irene and then Sandy. We rebuilt the northeastern set of stairs. We have actually demolished the southeastern set of stairs and believed that we may try to proceed and operate the building without them, but we also have undertaken an egress and capacity study of the entire complex so that we could be in line with the city's officials, both the building department and also the fire department, about how we can operate the building to essentially create a playbook so that when we want to have an event going on in Convention Hall and also in the Paramount Theater at the same time, you know, we can say, Garrett, turn to page 17. This is the configuration. This is how many people we're allowed to have. You know, this is something that's prepared for us by our engineer and our architect that are sealing that this is your capacity. So as a result of the analysis that was done, we decided that we would, in fact, like to rebuild those southeastern stairs onto the beach just to help with the flow and the operation of the building. So that's something that's currently being designed. And until those are done, we wouldn't be able to go back. And I mean, that's a part. The sprinklers are another part of us being able to apply for certificates of completion on Convention Hall. The other thing that's ongoing there, while it's not necessarily required, it's not something it's explicit in the SDA, is that obviously since the collapse of the ceiling on the northeast side, we have taken on a structural investigation of the entire complex. And we have done some stabilization work as a result of that, and continue to work on that with P.W. Moss and Associates. So, let's see.
Carrie, with Convention Hall, there's a preservation easement on that building.
Correct.
Historic Preservation Office has to be consulted, Historic Trust.
Mm-hmm.
Is there coordination with those groups?
There is, Don. We annually have to report to them in the Schedule D that we report all of the work that's taken place, and we also are meeting with them this month to talk about both Convention Hall and then the casino and carousel.
Just be sure that they look at all
Absolutely.
plans.
Yep.
Okay, just briefly, since we're on Convention Hall, and
Yep.
if you want to comment, where do we stand on the copper panels?
Well, it's the same place we have stood. I mean, is that we're committed to replacing, restoring them. We are, I know that, Don has publicly stated that they're going to be working with the state legislators to try to have the case closed administratively. Until the case is closed, we're sort of in a holding pattern, but we will. There's two things, I should say. There's the case being closed, and then there may be some structural issues. So the minute the case is closed, it does not mean the copper panels go right back up. It does mean that we have to consider what's going on structurally. And with that, if my engineer didn't leave, he could answer that better. But I do want to make that clear, because I don't want the public to think that the minute there's a victory in closing the case, we may absolutely be able to put them up the next day. There will be a process that we have to go through to make sure that we, it could be that it's partial, it may not be. But, I don't know, Phil, if you want to, that is an important issue to the public. So it's the case that what I've been told is that we can't necessarily, in all parts of the building, restore them immediately.
The temporary shores that you see around the outside, when they were installed, they cut portions of the existing beams out. So in order to remove the temporary shores, you have to repair the beams. And you can't replace copper panels until the beams are replaced, as well as some support steel that used to remain there below that. The panels actually extended below the bottom of the beams. So it's a fairly involved and large process involved in all three sides of the building. And before you have to complete structural repairs before you can contemplate putting the panels back.
Are there structural supports where every panel was, or could you do like half of them? Every panel had?
Conceivably, you could do a bay at a time, it'd be between two columns at a time. It would be cost prohibitive to do them one at a time. You really want to let out the whole thing at one time, because there's a learning curve. The more you do, the faster you get, the faster the thing will get done if it's done all at one time. There is a repair design out there. We have not put it out to bid as of yet, but it is fairly extensive and it's fairly lengthy, and the posts stay until such time as it repairs. One of the tricky things is, because the beams are cut, when you pull the post out, do the repair, you also remove the support when the beam was now cut. So it's kind of a chicken and an egg. The oil repair, you take out the thing and pull it up. That's why it's a little sticky, not just
Okay, I know this isn't part of tonight's report, but just one quick question. Is there a middle ground where you can say, hey, guess what? We're not going to replace them 100% as per coppers, whatever you're going to replace them with, but could you put marine plywood up and paint them green, so at least it blends in and it doesn't look like more salt air is not going in and doing more deterioration?
That brick's pretty tight, the mortar's pretty tight. It's
Then why do we need all the support of everything?
no, actually, that brick, it's the same brick and mortar as is the rest of the building. It looks sloppier than it is because the joints are tooled. That brick will hold up as well as the rest of the building. In fact, it's going to hold up better because it's not been exposed to the weather for decades like the rest of it. So it's really not in any danger.
By the time we get the panels up, it is going to be decades. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
Sure. Keep going.
Yep.
There's more.
Okay.
I know, sorry. All right, the next is green spaces, which are, the open spaces dotted between the pavilions. It's where the pop-up concessionaires are. It's also where the splash park and the mini golf is, those are one of the things that are mentioned in, but really not subject to the SDA, just that we, manage them appropriately, et cetera, et cetera. The only thing that I'll point out to you is that we did turn in a TRC application because we're seeking to put several food trucks on the green space north of Sunset Pavilion. And so that's the matter that the TRC will take up on the 18th, that would be moving before you as council and then the planning board, with hopes that we can accelerate that as much as possible so that we could have some folks up there and some more signs of life. For the 2015 season, 2nd Avenue Pavilion site is actually a site right now. It's where Tony's and the Crepe Shop pop-ups are. It's the green space across from the Stone Pony. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that our partners, iStar Financial, worked with us on the landscaping of these green spaces to help make them look as great as they look right now. And so 2nd Avenue Pavilion site is a future development site. It's only going to be this way for a while, but it will be subject to a future SDA agreement. And the next is the casino and the power plant. There's no certificate of completion that's required, again, through the SDA. We are allowed to do exactly what we've been doing, which is repair and stabilize the building. We've, as recently as this past summer, did some structural investigation and stabilization work in coordination with the city construction office. And this is one that I bring to your attention, or just put it on your radar, that we are beginning to formulate plans for the end use of this, the casino and the power plant, and would like to open up negotiations of a subsequent developer's agreement for this complex. And we'll be talking to SHPO about it as well, per Don's earlier point. The other items are infrastructure improvements, and per my report, these are things that are mentioned in the waterfront infrastructure improvement report, and all of these items have been completed well prior to this report being done. So,
Have you been working for a tenant for a casino, power plant, buildings? How do you handle that aspect?
You know what, we receive a lot, Don. We have concepts that we would like. It's going to be a multi-tenant type endeavor. And so some of the things we're thinking about in terms of tenants that we bring on over the next few seasons would absolutely be, auditioning for a future space, if you will. But we can't get too far ahead of ourselves. It wouldn't be a single tenant in those buildings. It would, as it's conceived now, have to be some sort of multi-tenant type affair. So yes, but we are now, gathering our thoughts until what we want this to be. You don't talk about it too much before we know that, we can't start construction until we have an SDA, and we have to talk to SHPO about the casino.
I guess same question for the 2nd Avenue Pavilion space. Do you reach out, try to find tenants for these spaces? I mean, how does it work?
For 2nd Avenue, where we don't have a building, or?
Correct. I mean, are you saying, hey, I've got an available space? Is there anyone out there that's interested in
building their own building? It has not been our first approach, no, to say come build your own building, or we're going to build you this building on spec. We are more concerned, frankly, right now with filling the ones that we already have, rather than building new. But in sort of an accelerated way that we're approaching what's going on, we certainly can. We do know that it's a space that we have, and we hope that as we show off, looking even better this summer than we've looked in the past, when there's interest, that's the type of request that we can entertain. If somebody would love to come and take a whole pavilion.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.
I'm going to stand up. I'm going to fall down because my
And Mayor and Council, if I can just indicate to the public that the governing body will be considering the presentation that was made this evening in discussions with its redevelopment council in executive session at tomorrow evening's regular meeting before a formal response is made to Madison Asbury Retail. The next item on the agenda is going to be presented by Don Samet, and it's a proposal for a new ordinance relating to requests for amendments to existing redevelopment plans, which would establish an application procedure and require the posting of escrow funds. Don?
Right. We've talked about this in the past. You know, as you know, we receive a number of requests for folks to amend our redevelopment plans in response to whether it's a new use we never contemplated under those redevelopment plans, or to permit a use in a different sub-district of a redevelopment plan where it's currently not permitted. Well, in those cases of use, we cannot actually grant a variance. The zoning board can't grant a variance, a use variance. So we need to amend the redevelopment plan to actually allow for certain uses which may not be permitted. To date, the city has paid all expenses to go along with that process because there is an ordinance that needs to be drafted up. There is resolutions that have to be prepared. We're looking to change that and have the applicants pay those fees. So there are, if we have consensus, I think we can start right away and start immediately requiring individuals to set up an escrow. I've put together a draft application form and sort of a list of instructions as well as submission requirements that one could follow. Again, the requirement that an escrow account be established and we could pay our attorneys and professionals bills from that escrow. And we can also move forward to formally codify this process and even establish an application fee. So as long as everyone's okay with that, we'd like to keep moving. Because if we are to codify this, it is part of our land development regulations. And if we codify it, anytime you amend the city's land development regulations, the planning board gets a look at it. That's required by state law, the municipal land use law. So what we are requesting for your meeting tomorrow is that you pass a resolution referring this proposed ordinance change, establishing the application fee and escrow fee and procedure, adopt a resolution referring that to the planning board for their review and comment.
And you're in charge of what gets on the planning board, so you can fast track that so it's heard at the next meeting? It's a 5-minute.
I'd like to say I'm in charge of what the planning board hears on a specific night.
But in this one, we're going to ask that be held at the next meeting. I think the planning board and the council work together very well, so.
I can say that the mayor and council would like this reviewed very quickly.
At the next meeting. You can add that very quickly at the next meeting, please, just because it's taxpayers' money that's not being collected. And they're all taxpayers, so I think they would want to hear this.
I think also as a matter of policy, we could require folks to establish an escrow right off the bat. I would say for anything new that comes in. I wouldn't want to.
I'm not going retroactive. I totally agree with you. I appreciate the work you did.
We've got a couple in the works right now. You know, I wouldn't want to hit them over the head.
No, but from anybody here on out.
Anyone who comes to my office tomorrow says, I want a plan amendment, I want the council
give them a
to
heads
review
up that we're going to say, we're going to vote yes contingent upon them paying the fees.
And I'd give them the application form.
Right, okay. Fred, good?
Yes, absolutely. And with regard to the ordinance, I actually jumped the gun in preparing the ordinance from Don's notes that he had provided in the packet, and it's listed on tomorrow night's agenda as if it were going to be introduced. I actually need to revise that such that, as Don indicated, we have to send this to the planning board first. So what we're going to present to you tomorrow evening is a resolution to refer this to the planning board and get their feedback before you introduce the ordinance.
Okay.
And just,
that's what put the rush on.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think this was a great idea, and great follow-up, Don. I just had a question when we do, like, things like the pilots and the special assessments in, for example, the WRA. Why are those not considered amendments to the or are they considered amendments?
They're not. A pilot agreement, tax abatement agreement,
right.
Negotiation of redevelop agreement, it's not it's not a land development regulation. Think of it this way. Your waterfront redevelopment plan is the zoning ordinance, and loose term, it's the zoning ordinance for the waterfront. It's the development regulations for what can be built in the waterfront.
Okay.
The contractual pieces to it, the tax abatement pieces, are a separate animal. So you don't need to amend any redevelopment plan, since you don't need to amend your zoning ordinance to allow for a tax abatement.
Yeah, it just seems like the infrastructure was such a big part of the 2002 agreement, and then you change that outside of changing that agreement. I just didn't really.
Part of the 2002 redeveloper agreement with Asbury Partners,
Right.
yes.
Right.
Yes, but not part of the 2002 redevelopment plan.
Right, okay.
How the infrastructure is funded is not covered really in the redevelopment plan. I mean, there may be reference to the master developer paying something, but
Right.
but the provisions for that,
Are in
the
the
contractual
redeveloper's agreement.
obligations, are in the redeveloper's agreement, the contract.
And that
with
doesn't
the
get
redeveloper.
amended in the same way that the plans do?
I'm sorry?
That doesn't get amended in the same way the plans do?
No, you can do a agreement by resolution. I believe, though, the 2002 waterfront agreement was actually adopted by ordinance.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Next.
Next is we have several items for discussion. The first one is a discussion about a proposed resolution, which is part of the regular session agenda for tomorrow night's meeting. It's resolution number 2015-81, and it would petition the County of Monmouth for relief in reconstructing 4th Avenue from Ridge Avenue to Memorial Drive due to the debilitating effects of the automobile and commercial vehicular traffic detoured thereupon by the county's ongoing Sunset Bridge replacement project. My understanding is that Mayor Moore is going to be addressing this item.
Well, it's, last week, let's say last Tuesday, we met with New Jersey Transit as far as the buses going up and down 4th Avenue. And we asked them for their schedule and their route. The route services 400 people a day. And on Sunset Avenue, it picks up one person and drops one person. And we said, well, reroute your traffic, go down Main Street, make a left on Sunset, and make a left on Memorial, take it to Asbury, and then take it out on Ridge. And they said no. And we said, we'll pay for your diesel. And they said no. We said, we'll build a bus stop for this one person to walk 3 blocks. And they said no. And so anything we came up with, they just kept on saying, no, this is the plan that's been in place for 4 years, and we're not going to change it because it could add a couple of minutes to the time frame, and that could add another bus for the route, and that would cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we said, well, we'll have our police department go clock it, as far as like, we'll drive our senior citizens bus and do the route with going up Sunset, across 5th, across 4th, up 4th, ripping up 4th, and then do it, making the left on Memorial and go into Asbury Avenue, and we'll bet you it's less than a minute. And they still said no. And so what they suggested was petition the county to pay for 4th Avenue. So that's what we're doing on the advice of New Jersey Transit. It makes no sense to me, but that's where we stand.
So when I read, I
Yeah.
just have a question. So when I read it, I didn't understand what we were petitioning. It just says relief in any way. So do we think we should have a couple of strong asks? Like it just talks about we want relief, but I didn't see anything about paving or, I don't know, this was a little vague for me.
We can certainly add more specific language. This was drafted by the city engineer. We can certainly put in any further.
There's no ask. There's no specific ask in this resolution. I've read it twice.
So if you would like monetary relief or other,
Well, the purpose of it was to ask that they pave 4th Avenue since their detour is causing the street to deteriorate quicker than it normally would.
The city hereby implores the County of Monmouth to assist in providing relief in any possible way for the reconstruction of 4th Ave. So it would just be a lot more, I would just be a lot more specific in the asks, right? I'm not crazy to think that.
No, absolutely.
No.
I'm glad you picked up on it.
yeah, so what we can do is
I
we
would have a
can,
couple of asks.
we can
I
put
would
in
have like
some
your grand ask.
specific information there before you adopt this at tomorrow night's council meeting.
Okay.
I'll confer with
What
the
is our
city
specific
engineer.
ask?
Why don't we say repave
4th Avenue.
4th Avenue?
From-
Maybe 3rd as well, if we're asking for the moon.
You're asking for the moon, so it doesn't hurt to ask.
And
And
what about,
reroute, right? And reroute people. We're asking them to reroute.
Yes.
No, that's not up to the county, that's up to New Jersey Transit.
Okay.
is there any way the county could provide enforcement support? for the speeding?
You can ask for that. I saw that was a suggestion on next door. Maybe they can help us with radar.
Something.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that could be an ask.
Okay, so somebody's got to follow up with Joe on the ask.
I'll follow up
Or
with Joe
whoever
tomorrow.
did the resolution. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, the next item for discussion regards Porta, and specifically dealing with construction and parking issues. I know Mr. James Watt, principal of Porta, is here, if you'd like to have him come forward.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for having me here. I have a couple things that I just want to hand out. I have packets of photographs. I'll put one on each end.
Okay. You want to look first thing?
Looks like.
So I'm sure, as you're very well aware, Kingsley Street is closed from First Avenue to Third Avenue, as well as the intersection of Kingsley and Second Avenue past the Porta building. So basically, any street frontage that Porta has is now closed because of the construction. I must say that we're very happy in the long run about the construction, because we think that getting all the power lines underground, replacing that stretch of sewer, which has been a problem from time to time, and the overall beautification with the street trees and the new sidewalks, I think is fantastic. And I understand also that this is an appropriate time to do such work because it is the slowest season of the year. It is also the slowest season of the year, and it is a real challenge for us. We've seen a significant impact to our business already. It is very difficult for our customers, although we are open. We remain open the whole time. We are open 7 days a week for lunch and dinner. That is a brand position that we take. That's the way we've always operated our businesses. The only way to really get to our building is through basically walking around a construction zone. First of all, finding a place to park, and then getting to our building around a construction zone. The pictures that I showed, that I've sent, are the current conditions. Those are going to be the conditions through, my understanding is, the beginning of May, and I hope that it's all done at that point. We employ well over 100 people at this location of Porta. A lot of those, a good percentage of those people are Asbury Park residents. We, as a business strategy, unlike a lot of restaurant groups, we try not to let a lot of people go in that off-season. We want to keep people employed throughout the year, so it's very important that specifically in February and March, when it is very slow, that we encourage all the business that we can. What I would ask the mayor and council is to consider First Avenue from Ocean Avenue to Berg to be free parking during the time that the road is closed in front of Porta. Right now, we're directing people through signage that we've created and paid for to get from, if you're coming south on Kingsley, we're directing people around basically to the intersection of First Avenue and Kingsley as the most convenient way to go to Porta. I think it would be a really nice gesture to our customers, as well as Stella Marina and Kubicon and Stone Pony's customers, to provide, while this kind of challenging situation is going on, to provide free parking for them on those 2 blocks of First Avenue. I think it's a reasonable ask given what's going on there. Again, I don't want to come here complaining. I'm very happy that the work is happening. I believe that it's great for everybody in the long run, but it is a real challenge right now to have our customers decide to still come in the face of kind of this physically challenging situation. So I was just hoping we could discuss that.
Yeah, so, well, so you obviously know we're a state on transitional aid.
Yes.
So anytime we're gonna lose money, the state's involved with that. We asked for Thanksgiving to Christmas, to suspend the meters, bring people in, shop, eat, drink, don't let them pay, and the state said no. I think you're going to be hard pressed to get them to say free parking for, you know, those blocks in a redevelopment zone where redevelopment's going on in an appropriate time of year. I mean, I think the explanation to the state that it's really good to your customers, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that's gonna go over to them when they give us $3.2 million to function.
I respect that, and I think that obviously is a hurdle that has to be overcome. I do think that, you know, Porta and the business that Porta does in the off-season is a really important part of getting people to that section of the city during this time. You know, a lot of our customers are in you know, they're parking there. They're visiting other businesses. They're visiting a section of the city that otherwise is quite desolate. And I think that if our customers are discouraged from going there, there's no parking revenue being generated anyway. And I think just from an eyes on the street kind of point of view and a general vibrancy for that section of the city, I think that section of the waterfront needs all the help it can get during these months when it is quite cold and windy down there, to encourage people to be there.
Can I ask one other question? Other than subsidizing the parking, is there anything else the city could do that would help?
What we did do, I understand your problem, and just Friday, Jim grabbed me, we went down there, I had Robert Bianchini meet me down there, I had the police department meet me down there, and the first thing we did, we put one of those big electronic scoreboards, which I wish you could put in the picture, but, you know, Porta's open on the south end, north end.
North end, yes.
North end. So people just don't get to the roadblock and, well, Porta's closed. So we do have that. Now, we may have to pull that down the road if we have an emergency someplace we need that elsewhere. But until we do, that's going to be dedicated there to let people know you are open. I know you put out some signage, and we talked to Burke and the representative from iStar, I forget his name, to see if they could get more signage up as far as, like, as much as the county did a terrible job with Sunset Avenue Bridge, the one thing they did do good is they put up tons of signs saying how to get to Sunset Landing, all through Wanamassa. That's about the only thing they've done right so far, and there is good signage. So we might be able to help with better signage. Like Amy said, the problem is going to be with the state. We were hoping to have the numbers crunched tonight, what that would cost us. So we may have that by tomorrow night. The parking authority hasn't given that to us yet. And then we'd still have to run it by the state. But right now, as much as you say, you know, it'd be free parking for your patrons. If your patrons take it all, then where do the patrons of Cubicon park? I mean, it can't be dedicated just for, you know, your patrons with valet parking.
No. I wouldn't suggest that at all. I think that would be unfair. I just think, I mean, I spent a lot of time this weekend, starting Thursday night, which is the roads were closed as of Thursday, this past Thursday, right? So obviously, I was incredibly concerned about this situation. If I could have shown you the numbers for that Thursday night, it was a terrifying situation, and I'm very happy that you kind of spent some time with me on Friday, and we talked about signage and some solutions, because I was really concerned that this was going to be a major problem for us in sustaining through May. I think the sign that you provided is a tremendous help, and the kind of wayfinding signs that we've created ourselves in a sort of Porta-branded way have also helped. I did spend a lot of time out on the street myself personally, talking to people as they were parking, talking to them about how did you find the experience? Was it clear to you as to where you needed to go? And almost every person I talked to said, we don't have to pay, do we? It's, you know, at this time of the year. And I said, no, you do have to pay. They were shocked. They were like, why on earth would we be paying in the middle of the winter to park in this section of Asbury Park when, you know, it's anyway, I'll leave
Right,
it
and
at that.
I think that's probably a separate issue, right? And we have a parking consultant that's looking at it. Does it make sense to have parking paid for down at the beach in the winter, right?
It's
So
a
that's
related issue, yes.
Related,
Yeah,
but.
yes.
So with this last comment, I'm not completely clear on the concern. The concern is that people don't want to pay for parking when they go to Porter, or they can't find Porter because of and I'm not sure how the parking and the finding Porter are related.
Because we don't have any more street frontage for Porter,
Right.
right? None.
Right,
So-
and does that impact your parking?
Does that impact our parking?
Yeah. Was there a significant amount of parking in that area?
Yeah, absolutely.
right,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then not only our frontage, but also to the east of us, there's a tremendous amount of parking to the east of us that you can't get from that parking area to the east over Kingsley. It's been made clear to us by the city, by Burke, and by iStar that under no circumstances can any of our customers cross that construction zone.
No, but they can park on Second Avenue, which, I was down there Saturday, Joe was
Yeah,
down
I
there
walked there
Saturday.
as well.
We saw you, and we were down there. And at first, when I was down there Friday, I wasn't sure Second Avenue had a U-turn down at the end, so I thought there would be a bottleneck there, but there is a U-turn, so Second Avenue is open for parking. Now, what they have to do, if I park on Second Avenue and want to go to Porta, I've got to walk a block this way, a half a block this way, and a block this way, instead of just cutting across the street.
You're talking about the easterly section of Second Avenue.